Hello everybody and welcome to The United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news on a very big day for the Premier League. There will be a Premier League meeting today. What will happen? Will we see football back? Will we see it shelved like we have in France? Interesting things going on with that. And also, you know what? It's all about opinion. I've got an opinion on this, and I think the Bundesliga is showing how you get football back. Unfortunately, or fortunately, or just, you know what? It's opinion. Some people just don't want to see it back. But we'll talk about how I think the Premier League will try to get it back and how some people will try and stop it coming back in a moment. But we're here to talk about Manchester United as well. Some big transfer news coming in around Adrien Rabiot. Now, this is, well, look, let me tell you the story first. Two Italian outlets talking about Rabiot and Manchester United. Calcio Mercato saying that his agent is constantly in contact with Manchester United. And also Gazzetta dello Sport saying that he's actively looking for a move and he wants out. There was even talk over the weekend that he's refusing to go back to the Juventus training camp after lockdown because he wants to move out of Juventus. Now, this is the trouble with Adrien Rabiot. Now, if you don't know much about him, I'd say 3-4 years ago, a lot of people were saying this lad's going to be one of the best midfielders in world football, which sounds ridiculous at the moment. He's just turned 25, and obviously at PSG it ended badly. Last summer he was out of contract. United were linked to him. He chose to go to Juventus. He's gone to Juventus and it's not worked out, and now he's looking to leave. It's for me, this is too much of a leap into the unknown for Manchester United, and I think it's a deal we should not do. But he's 25. On his day, he can play in any position. He can hold the midfield. He can play in the number 8. He can go box to box. He's physical. He's quite tall. He's good on the ball. He can make a tackle. He can score goals. He's got every attribute that you would want. And when you say that we were talking in around December time that we'd like Emre Can to come to United, who was also of Juventus and around the same age, if you want Emre Can, you can't really ignore Rabiot. But have we not already moved on from that with the signing of Bruno Fernandes? Not because Bruno Fernandes is a similar type of player, but I think United have a type of player now that we're looking at. And that type of player is somebody with the right mentality, with the right career step, where they're at a club and they're doing well, but that club they're at is not as big as Manchester United. So the step up to Manchester United they're hungry for, and they can take that ability hungrily to Manchester United and develop further. Bruno from Sporting, Harry Maguire from Leicester, Crystal Palace with Wan-Bissaka. These are the sort of signings that we should be looking at. I mean, even Sancho at Dortmund. I know Dortmund have been doing better than United in recent years, but we're still a bigger club. It's still considered a big step. Rabiot, PSG, Juventus to Manchester United. Where's the big step there? Is he not effectively, and I'm not saying it's a step down from Manchester United, from Juventus to Manchester United, because it's not. But in the context of his career, is he not stepping down? Failure at Juventus, coming to Manchester United. I think it's a dangerous deal to do. And also, I think when our Manchester United don't need to be making these risks anymore. We did the show again last night with Ricky and Adam, and we were looking at signings over the last 6 years and ranking them on the tier list of average, not so good, not great, good, and elite. And there was a lot of average to not so good signings. And I think that's because we made a lot of risks. The Schweinsteigers, the Di Marias, the Falcaos. There was some big risks. I mean, even Zlatan was a risk at his age. So we've made a lot of risks. We haven't been doing that recently. So why go back to being that? You get Rabiot as a risk, but you could get Van der Beek looking to take a step up. Grealish looking to take a step up. Partey looking to take a step up. There's plenty of players out there that fit the profile of transfer that we're looking at these days, and I don't think Rabiot does. And what also concerns me the most about Rabiot is that Pogba. This is just part of a Pogba deal. It's very obvious that Juventus want Pogba. It's very obvious that Pogba wouldn't mind going back to Juventus. But they can't afford Pogba. So how are they going to supplement that deal? Well, hello, here we go. Rabiot, we don't want him anymore. You need a midfielder. It's a no from me. It doesn't mean Manchester United aren't going to do it, but it's a no from me. I don't get a good feeling about this deal. I don't necessarily want... I mean, are United desperate? Are we desperate? No. We're desperate to get back to the top of English football, but we're doing it in the right way at the moment. And I think most fans buy into what we're doing in relation to building a team. Rabiot is a player we don't really want, but we'll take because it's part of a Pogba deal that we don't even want to sell him. And if we're going to sell Pogba, we should take money so that we can go and buy what we want, not what Juventus don't want anymore, to get a player that we don't want to give them. So I'm against it. I don't know what you think, but get your comments in below on that one. Also, a little bit about Meunier from PSG. Apparently, we're linked to signing Meunier. Now, Meunier, as far as I remember, is about 29 now. We were looking at Meunier. 2 years ago, we were looking at Meunier. Last year we looked at Meunier, but Wan-Bissaka became available and we quickly and rightly went after that deal. We're not looking at Thomas Meunier, and he's not out of contract, and he would be quite expensive. So we're not going to look at him, and we don't need to be looking at him. So I don't know where that story's coming from with Meunier. It'll probably end up being true now. Upamecano's very interesting. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest stories of the day. Upamecano's agent obviously plays RP Leipzig, and his agent has come out and said that I don't see there being any big transfer deals this summer. Upamecano leaving Leipzig would be a big transfer deal. You've got your statement there. And what he's basically saying is that Upamecano is not going to go. So maybe actually what Sky Sports said last week, that Upamecano will sign a new contract at Leipzig, is actually going to come to pass. And I think it's always very important that when we're talking about all these stories, you do acknowledge those who get it right. And to be fair, Sky Sports last week, when they had Dimarzio, Sky Cave, and somebody else, and I forget who it was, they did say that they expect Leipzig to sign him on a new contract because he's got 1 year left. So his agent is basically saying that he's not going to leave, so maybe there is going to be a new contract there for Upamecano, which will upset Arsenal fans, I suppose, because they want him. There were some United fans who wanted him as well. I don't see, I mean, just talking about transfers for a moment, and it doesn't affect us at the moment, but there are clubs, Premier League clubs out there, who have asked their players to take pay cuts. There are clubs out there, I don't need to name them. How are those clubs expecting to then sign players in the summer when you've asked your players to take pay cuts for a number of months? It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think that I'd be very surprised if a club that's had players taking a pay cut then go and buy players. So that's a positive for United because we've not asked our players to do that so far. Right, let's talk about the Premier League for a moment. Now, the Telegraph are saying that the Premier League will meet today with guidelines that Premier League footballers start training next Monday with a 4-week plan to start football on June the 12th. Now, we've got the Bundesliga coming back this weekend, as far as we know, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Premier League back training in a week with looking for a 4-week start. Now, I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with this. I've had people saying to me today, oh, you just want football back because you run the United stand and it makes money for you when football's back. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I've said from day one, my stance is that I want to see football back whenever it comes back. I want to see this season finished. And the reality is that, you know, anybody who watches me play FIFA and stuff like that, or watches the 8 o'clock shows, football back or not doesn't make a massive amount of difference because the views are roughly the same anyway. So it doesn't matter, and it's not about that. It's not about views. It's not about money. Look, it's about safety, and it's about trying to get life back to normal. In this country, on June the 1st, kids are going back to school. Like, kids are going back to school on June the 1st under this current plan if we don't have a high infection rate. People are going back to work today and over the next couple of weeks. So why can't footballers go back? Well, people will say, oh, because it's a contact sport, it's non-essential. Oh, they're taking tests away from nursing. They're not taking tests away from nursing. Nursing tests are funded by this government. Tests for Premier League football is going to be funded by the Premier League. It's irrelevant. That's a totally irrelevant point. The government should get their finger out and start finding the tests for their key workers. I agree with that. But the Premier League doesn't have to do that. The Premier League has to test their own people. The government won't pay for Premier League testing. Premier League are going to have to test their players. So they're going to pay for it. What's that got to do with doctors and nurses being testing? It might be immoral, like I said, but that's the way of the world. But look at what's happening in the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga today, Bayern Munich bus driving into their training headquarters where they will stay until their match, which I think Bayern Munich don't play till next Sunday or Monday. So they're going to be quarantined training in their training camp for a week. This is what I've said, and a lot of people have said. If you want football back, let's forget the Premier League at the moment and look at the Bundesliga. If you want football back, you've got to do things to get it back, and you've got to all buy into doing that. Testing, and those players will get tested. Quarantine them before, and I think after games. They basically should be on a World Cup camp for the next 6 weeks. But testing's really important. So Bayern Munich are going to play whoever they're going to play next weekend, right? They're going to train in a quarantine camp where everybody's been tested, and they will be tested throughout the week. And if there is one case of it, that will be a quarantined camp and they won't be able to play next week. But if it goes as planned, nobody will have the virus because they're all being tested and they're all staying in the same group so that they can't go outside and bring the infection in. They'll play their match and their opposition will do exactly the same. And a game of football will get played. And maybe they'll do that for the next week and play another game, and another game will football gets played. Now, in England, in the Premier League, we know we've got clubs who don't want to play because they don't want to get relegated. We know we've got players who don't want to play because they're scared. Look, they're all valid opinions. I'm not getting into that tonight. They're all valid opinions. But have we also got clubs and players who don't want to do the things required to get football back, i.e. going into a quarantine camp before a match? Because to me, that was always common sense. You cannot have Manchester United players training on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before a match and going home to friends and family each evening or day after training, sitting at home, interacting with those. Some of them might have gone shopping down the local Tesco's. You add that risk up amongst hundreds of footballers who are going home to family and friends who, in their day, are going quite rightly to do shopping, but putting themselves into situations where they might pick up the virus, bring it back. Player has his dinner, picks it up, doesn't have any symptoms, goes to training the next day, passes it to players. We're not going to get football done like that, and that's why the Bundesliga aren't doing it like that. They're asking their players to go into camps before matches so that they can control any spread, so that when the match happens, there is nobody on that pitch with the virus. So that's how we're going to have to do it. Will Premier League clubs want to do that? Will Premier League players want to do that? Somebody said to me today, wow, they don't have to, it's not in their job description. What do you think happens when they go on tour to America, or when they go on tour to Australia or Asia or wherever they go on tour? They go on tour for a month. What happens when they play in the World Cup or the Euros? They go in a camp for 6 weeks. Now, they might get to see close family, and I'm sure they can see close family in these quarantine camps, but they will all have to be tested before they go in as well. It's going to take sacrifice to get it, but as footballers, to say, "Oh, I'm not going to go and live in a camp in a training camp for 6 weeks," it's not out of the ordinary. If you go and play for England in the World Cup, you're doing it. If you go on tour, you're doing it. So it's all about appetite and it's all about the players. And I totally respect anybody who doesn't want it back because it's their opinion. But don't start saying we can't do it because there's too much risk, they might catch it. Nobody's sending people to play on a whim. They will be tested. They should be put into camps, like I say, training camps before the game, maybe even after as well, and along the way rigorously tested. And if anyone gets it, they go into isolation. Everyone else gets tested, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but that's how you get it done. That is how you get it done. And I think some people are like, "Oh, it's too much of a risk." Well, it's too much. I'm not going to get tested when I'm going out doing the things I've got to do from next week. Your kids aren't getting tested when they go back to school. You know, people who are going back to work in construction, they're not getting tested. We've all got to find a way to live with this. And I'm first at the front of the queue to say that footballers shouldn't be playing if there is any, if they're not going to get tested and there's a risk that when they're playing that there's people with an infection. But that's not what they're looking to do here. And I think the German Bundesliga is going to show the way. And if it doesn't work in the Bundesliga for whatever reason, we can't follow suit. But for the moment, I think we've got to. Whether you should, if players refuse to play, whether you should stop their wages, well, that's not for me to discuss. But ultimately, if they're refusing to play because they won't go into a safe training camp and get tested before a match, they're effectively refusing to play football when there is very little risk, if any. So that's for the clubs to decide. But it's going to be interesting. I think we're not at the end of the debate yet. I think even tonight we might be having a bigger debate when we get the news, because how are you going to feel if we go down the French route and say it's over? Are you going to be happy with that? Some of you will, some of you won't. But I just think, as I've always said, it's a little bit too soon to start making your decisions. And also, remember, in Germany, they're not playing at neutral grounds. I think they're going to play at their normal grounds. We've taken that step to say we don't want that. We want to play at neutral grounds to make it a little bit safer. Let's just wait and see. But you've got to respect everybody's opinion, but it doesn't mean you can't debate that opinion. And as I said, there's a few people who come back at me on social media, and I'll reply to them and I'll say, look, you made a good point. It's your opinion. My opinion is this. And look, we are dealing with a pandemic that kills people, of course, and you've got to take that into consideration. On the other hand, we can't live on lockdown forever. We can't. And football, to some, is non-essential because it is non-essential. But there's a lot of non-essential things that are going back because we're trying to get back to some sense of normality. And football can either get on that train or not. But I tell you what, if football, the Premier League, cancelled today the season and said we'll try and get back in September, and then next weekend you see the Bundesliga playing, and then the weekend after that you see the Bundesliga playing, there'll be a lot of people saying we should have cancelled it, going, actually, we've cancelled it a bit soon. They're doing a great job. We've got no Premier League football. So swings and roundabouts, but it's respect the debate. I mean, is that not what we are all about anyway? This channel, football, the wider world, it's all about opinion, isn't it? All about opinion. You have your own. That's how it works. I mean, to be fair though, Crystal Palace's chairman yesterday, I think it's Mr. Parrish, said that Premier League football did face an insurmountable challenge to get it back in June. So look, these people are all going to be part of the meeting today, and then you've got to go to the Players Association. So we'll see what happens with it. But look, back to the football. What do you think? Rabiot for Pogba? Would you take Rabiot? Is it too much of a risk? For me, it's just not the sort of signing we're doing these days. We're not doing those sort of risk signings. And I know a lot of people will be saying, oh yeah, I'd quite like Rabiot, and he could turn out to be brilliant. But he's already shown a temperamental issue at PSG and Juventus. And if things don't go well for him at United, we'll see it again. We just don't need to do that. And also, let's be honest, Rabiot is only being linked to United because Juventus want to give him as part of a Pogba deal. Would we be going after Rabiot if Juventus didn't want Pogba? I don't think we would. So I don't think we should. Thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video. Get your comments in below. And I'll speak to you all later.